G'day, and welcome to something a little bit different. Because we got a bit of a gap between Massive Chalice and the release of War of the Chosen, I thought I might try out something a little bit more experimental. So we're going to talk about Star Realms. We're going to go through the games I've been playing lately and try and learn from them. Because I have played a ton of this game. I love it. It's one of my favorite card games, especially since the digital version is so convenient, and I can basically have several games running at any given time. As a result, I've now played more than 1,200 games of Star Realms. So I'm using a recorded copy of the replay of these games. So we'll see. I need to try and remember to use the pause button more frequently. I may even slow down the pace of the video, but that's going to make the sound weird. So we'll see how we go. So here is the first game we're going to go through, which is a game against Jarenth, who you may remember from the previous Star Realms videos on this channel. He's one of the opponents, one of the first people that I played Star Realms against, and I still regularly have games against him. And so in this game, he went first. And so he starts by getting Trade Pod. It's a good card, but it's one of the weaker 2-cost cards that you can buy. On the other hand, I don't think he didn't exactly have a wealth of choices, and it's certainly better than an Explorer. Whereas I now have a full set of 5 cash, one of the, frankly, in my opinion, best starting hands you can have. Although again, the board state isn't super great, so I'm starting by buying a Blob Fighter, because then I can also potentially buy the Bioformer, and that's 2 green cards at the start. It exactly uses my cash, but the Predator comes up. So the Predator is 4 damage in a draw, so that is a better choice, especially when I've got the Blob Fighter. And the last 2, I'll get an Explorer. Try and shore up my money, because I have bought a lot of damaging cards. In the meantime, Jarenth is buying a base. That also means his first 2 purchases have been blob cards. And I'm going to follow up by buying Cargo Pod, which means that both of us at this stage have gone mono blob, which is kind of interesting. It's also unsustainable, and obviously, as I say this, Jarenth buys the Space Station, which is the first Star Empire card of the game to go. I guess it's because he had exactly 4 cash, and that's probably better than buying the Battle Pod. But I'm not sure. I probably would have tried to stick with green. In my case, I only had 3 cash, so the Merc Cruiser works quite well for me. It'll allow me to trigger blob cards, but also not punish me if I go out into a second color. So here we go. Jarenth getting, maximum utility off of the Bioformer and Trade Pod, which isn't that much because the Bioformer doesn't have an ally ability, but here he's getting his second Star Empire card, so he's being sensible and sticking with those 2 colors. And I've got 5 cash here, plus a draw from the Predator, so effectively 6 cash. So I'm venturing out into a second color for the first time with the flagship, which because I got the Merc Cruiser, I can potentially use its ally ability, but also its draw means it isn't a dead card in any circumstances. So, okay. So Jarenth grabs the Imperial Fighter, and now he's also getting, blob. He's getting a number of cheap cards here. Probably there wasn't any 6-cost card that he really wanted, but that does fill up his deck. So I had 8 cash there. And on the board, I could have gotten Fleet HQ, but instead, because I've had no scrap, I really wanted the card filter that Star Fortress would give me. And that, combined with Cunning Captain that showed up later, means that I can potentially trigger that twice. And then I get rid of the Explorer because the Explorer isn't very good. Okay, so Jarenth is grabbing the Falcon there with the extra draw. And here I've got not a great hand, but it does 10 damage, so it's nothing to sneeze at. And so I got the Blob Overlord, which could allow me to draw a card. And maybe that would have been a good idea, because it would force a cycling in my deck, but I don't go for that. I think in retrospect that would have been a better move. Okay, so we got Jarenth gets down all 3 of his Star Empire cards with a quite punishing turn. That's 15 damage, and I discard a card, so can't say I'm particularly pleased. Worth noting though, at this point, we are fairly even. Right, Jarenth is slightly ahead, made more so by the Federation card, but yeah, okay, so here we go, and now I get to use Cunning Captain to filter my deck further and try and get through more stuff. I'm trying to find useful cards and not really succeeding. The Ram is helpful, but yeah, it's not actually looking that good for me, but I just need to get 15 damage in the next couple of turns. And I don't quite manage it this turn. So here, Jarenth could potentially have gotten 20 damage out with his deck, but he's not lucky enough to, and so I win. I win with 1 damage to spare, no less. So that is, let's see. That's the game. That's kind of going through it step by step as much as I could. The real question is where we could have gone better. And I thought I'd told you to actually stop at the end of the video, but apparently following my settings is for suckers. So in terms of things that either side could have done better, I think Jarenth maybe buying the space station wasn't the right move in retrospect, but he got a lot of damage out of that, so I think it's hard to really say that for sure. I think maybe it would have been better for him to do what? Let's see. He had 4. I don't know, I think it would have been better. I think that was the right move, especially when he also was able to pick up Warworld. I don't think there was this is the problem with Star Realms, by the way. It's hard to pin down any particular move as crucial because it's all about efficiency. You make the right decisions at the start and you set yourself up for later in the game. So a minor mistake towards the beginning is much worse than a minor mistake towards the end, and you may not really see it for a good while. Who got the Blob Hero? Or was that actually destroyed? No, I bought the Blob Hero. I should have used the Blob Hero. I mean, that's the one mistake I can see, is I probably should have used the Blob Hero 1 turn earlier to get that card draw and allow my deck to cycle at the end of a turn. But otherwise, I don't really think there's anything that stands out to me as a particularly bad move. I think I was luckier with my card draw, and I was able to stick with one color for a little bit longer. When I branched out, it was very limited, and it was really just to get a little bit of card filtering and a little bit more card draw. So, I mean, if you branch out only into cards that draw you other cards, then you're not going to run into that often where you just can't trigger all your the ally abilities that really are important to you. And in my case, I didn't care so much about the flagship ally abilities. I cared much more about triggering as many blob ally abilities as I could. So that is the game against Jarenth. I mean, obviously I won, but it was a fairly close game, and I'm pretty sure if I hadn't won in my turn, then Jarenth would have won in his. So let's now look at the other game from this, which is a game against a friend of mine named Aulayan. So again, he got first turn, and he's going for 2 1-cost cards. Also blob. I think that's a good move, especially since the Predator was not on the board when he started, and he's only got 2 cash. That does set him up to potentially use those ally abilities, whereas I have 4 cash, which is exactly enough for Border Fort, which hopefully will allow me to avoid taking damage because it is a outpost, but also just give me that little edge when I need to buy something or I need to kill something off. So for a second turn he grabs a Predator and he grabs an Explorer. So I don't think the Explorer is a great move here, especially with both War Elder and Admiral Rasmussen on the board. He could have bought the War Elder and gotten rid of his Viper, which isn't really going to help him, or he could have spent the 2 on Admiral Rasmussen and thus gotten that drawer card in his pocket for a point where he needs to cycle his deck, or just some point where he needs to trigger yellow cards. So I immediately grabbed that War Elder and I grabbed the Survey Ship. Survey Ship isn't great, but it also is never a dead card. At this point I probably should have then used War Elder to get rid of the Viper, so it would never come up again. And I think at the time I accidentally clicked play on that, and I felt bad for doing so. On the other hand, I then was able to use, I'm in a good position to use War Elder on this next turn. Now here, Aulayan has once again bought an Explorer. Am I right? Sorry, just realized I was talking while that was happening. Yeah, so he once again bought an Explorer and hit me with Predator. And I think, again, he should have gone with the hero over that. So here I get to use the Border Fort twice, right? So here's a minor mistake. I should have taken damage from the Border Fort. You actually have to pick whether you take cash or damage before you can use the ally ability, and there's nothing on the board that I wanted for 1, obviously. So I could have gotten 1 more damage out. Oh, sorry, I could have gotten 2 more damage out instead. So that was, a minor mistake as well. It's not about the perfect plays. It's about trying to recognize where I can do better. So here, the Explorer did come in handy, because with that Explorer he had enough damage to pop the Border Fort. And he also finally made a non-Explorer purchase, because the Spike Pod allowed him to free up the board for some of the cheaper cards, and he got the Patrol Mech. And I don't know why he didn't also grab the Trade Bot then. I think that would have also been a better choice. So here I get the Trade Bot, I get the Trade Raft as well, and I get the, what's it called? Stellar Reef? No, the Trade Wheel, which is good because it just kind of sits there and gives me cash and is relatively inoffensive. But Aulayan got the Embassy Yacht, which is the card that I probably would have wanted to grab this turn, because it is a card that is triggered by having multiple bases, so it is a really nice card to have. So here we go, we got the Survey Ship, and we got the Trade Bot and the Border Fort. So with that I can get rid of more cards, and I have exactly 6 cash with everything. So I don't get to scrap anything this turn, but I did get to, I don't get to scrap 2 things this turn, but I did manage to get myself some more, what am I even trying to say? What did I grab? I grabbed something good. Oh, Plasma Vent. I grabbed myself another base, and that's going to give me more damage each turn. That's exactly what I was meaning. And on the other hand, because Aulayan only has 1 red card, he can't trigger the Patrol Mech scrap ability. So he actually has no scrap in his deck. So his deck is filling up. He's able to get the Mothership, which is a very nice card, definitely. Not going to argue with that. And he also, with the Explorer, is again able to destroy my Border Fort. So maybe I shouldn't be saying getting those cards is a mistake, when both times it's been allowed him to take out a base that would otherwise have stuck around and benefited me. I grab a Gunship here. Good to have that discard a card option, but also effectively I can then get rid of it to get my cash back, which is pretty powerful when we've got some nice high cost things like Command Ship and Port of Call on the deck. Okay, so Aulayan's grabbing he's grabbing Fed, Shuttle and Cutout, so he's increasing blue, which I think is also increasing the diversity of his deck. which is not ideal. So I'm able to again scrap my way out of some of my cards and pick up the gunship. So my deck is actually remaining fairly slim, which is nice. It's definitely got a number of blue cards coming up though, so it's clearly not hurting him too much. I'm continuing to be able to just scrap down my deck. So right now I've got 15 cards in deck, and I think Aulayan has more than 20. And I've just cut it down even further. So I'm cycling my deck every couple of turns. On the other hand, Aulayan's up 12 authority on me, so you know, I need to start doing more damage to him. So I'm continuing to thin out my deck. You see here I get the flagship. This also allows me to heal up and use special ops director to grab the trade draft. Meanwhile, Aulayan's buying up the fighter base, no, putting out the fighter base, and not buying anything really at the moment. His deck, I think, is just a bit too weighty because of the low-cost buys. Okay, yep, that's a lot of draw. I think this is kind of his last hurrah. If he doesn't get it here, which he comes very close. Yeah, okay, he could have gotten me down to 1, but he didn't. And thus he had to go for my bases, really. And here I actually scrapped, it's kind of easy to miss, but I scrapped a... I actually ran out of scouts to scrap in my discard. So I actually scrapped one of my cheapest cards that I just didn't want to have come up again. And so I'm healing, I'm playing down bases, I'm forcing him to discard, and this is kind of, if you can't get through my bases and do the damage this turn, I will win. That's exactly what happened. So he had scouts, he had 1 spike pod, and that's it. So he had a really good hand the previous turn, he had a really bad hand this turn, that he could, at the cost of 1 card, destroy 1 of my bases. And then, yeah, I've just got more than enough to take him out this time. So even after all that, this game was really close, and I nearly lost it. So right now, I'm just kind of driving the point home. It's totally unnecessary, but it's the kind of thing I do. And yeah, so what were the key things there? I think Aulayan bought more explorers than he needed to. Certainly more explorers than I needed to. I would have. I ended up with a fair diversity, as did he. It dragged on for a while, and he just didn't end up in a position where he could do quite enough to take me out, and I had enough. So that's kind of what I would come up with from that. I think it's really down to some of the stuff near the start where he bought explorers when there were better options on the board. Yeah. So this has been the first of what I plan to be a series of these, where I'm going to go through a number of the games. I've just been trying to record them where I can. I lost a couple recently because I was away and I can't really record them on my phone. And yeah, please let me know what you think, because I'd really like any feedback I can to improve these. These are definitely different to the kind of thing that I would normally do. So, until next time, have a great day. Bye. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending the time and effort watching the videos I make. If you'd like to watch more, on the left there should be another video from this playlist. On the right there will be whatever YouTube recommends, and in the center there is a convenient subscribe button just in case you need it.